I've been in the luxury watch industry for about 7 years now, and here are 10 things that I wish I knew sooner. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and today we are covering 10 things that I wish I knew when I started in the industry as a young kid 7 years ago. I started when I was about 16 or 17 and I'm now 25. Oh my god, that's 8 years. Wow, time flies. When I first got into the watch industry, anything above 43 mil in diameter, I would immediately say no to. Anything below about 39 mil in diameter, I would immediately put a red flag next to. I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't want to learn about them. I just didn't care. But through the years and through maturity probably, I learned to look elsewhere. I learned to try them on. And they normally look different on the wrist to what you would think they would coming in at that spec, that case size. So, for example, actually a good example of this is the Blancpain 54 that just got released. That comes in at 37 mil. Immediately, I said, no, I don't like it. And then I got it on the wrist, and it changed my mind. So end of point one, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a watch by its case measurements or specs. Make sure you see it in person, you hold it, you put it on the wrist, and you get a full story of that watch. And next up is kind of on the same breadth as that, is don't judge movements. Don't judge ETA movements just because they're mass produced. There's a perception in the industry that ETA movements are all bad. That anything mass produced is bad because we're talking about luxury here. But here's the thing, most brands in the industry are mass produced. And most brands use either parts of mass produced movements or ETA movements. For example, Tissot. ETA movements are mass produced movements, but they're mass produced because they're trusted, tried, and tested. I do not think that an ETA movement is bad just because it's mass produced. Most car brands are mass produced. It doesn't make them bad cars, it just means that they produce a lot of them. A lot of brands in the industry actually try to go down the in-house route before they're ready, and they end up making movements that are actually not as good as ETA movements. So I would much rather use an ETA movement and have the reliability of an ETA movement than a brand going down the in-house movement and not making as good a movement as the ETA, if that makes any sense. So basically what I'm trying to say is don't judge an ETA for being mass produced, and be careful with in-house movements because sometimes they're not always better. Next up, coming in at number 3, we have water resistance. And it's water resistance isn't as important as you think. I know you guys are going to kill me, hear me out. Unless you're a diver, is water resistance really that important? Yeah, you want to have protection of, obviously, 50 to 100 meters is pretty standard, but needing 300 meters? You probably don't. Now, when I first started in the industry, I would be infatuated by the numbers. I would be infatuated by the specs. If something didn't have a 300 meter water resistance, I didn't want anything to do with it. And that's partially why I got the Omega Seamaster 300 meters. But after a while of being in the industry, I realized I'm never going to go diving. So why do I care? Now, I'm not denying that water resistance is cool, but what I'm saying is it's not the be all and end all. I used to judge watches by how water resistant they were instead of how they actually looked on my wrist and how I actually felt about that watch. If you like a watch and it isn't 300 or 200 meters water resistant, is it going to make a difference to the bottom line? If not, go for it. Next up is the fact that leather straps are not for me. That's pretty much it. Coming in at number 5, you can change the personality of your watch with what strap you choose. Far too often in the industry, I see people getting bored of their watches, getting bored of the personalities of their watches. But a lot of the time they don't experiment, they don't change the straps on their watches. For example, my Omega Seamaster sitting at home, I have a bracelet, a rubber strap, and a NATO. And I alternate between all three depending on the environment or the situation that I'm taking part in or going to or whatever it is. This totally changes the aesthetic and look of a watch without the expensive price tag of buying a new watch. Now, I would suggest if you're starting to get a bit stale with your watch and you kind of want a change, first things first, look at a new strap before deciding to get another watch. But if you are looking for that new watch, remember that Chisholm Hunter are authorized retailers for a ton of different brands. We've got Tudor, Omega, Vacheron Constantin, Tag, a ton of others, all of which are on the Chisholm Hunter website linked below. So if it's your first watch or you just want to add to your collection, click the link below. Next up, we have the fact that this is quite a personal one, guys, but sentimental value always outweighs price. There was a mistake I made. I actually made a whole video about it. I sold a very sentimental piece of mine for money to make way for a new watch. And I'll never, ever live that down. I regret it to this day. It was the first luxury watch that I had bought myself with my own money. My first luxury watch was an Oris Artillery skeleton watch, but my parents bought me that. And I bought the Omega Seamaster Great White GMT, the older version with the steel bezel. Now, that meant a lot to me at the time. I was a young kid, I never went to uni, never went to college. As soon as I had enough money, I wanted to buy my first luxury watch because I'd started in the industry. And I don't know why I sold that. I don't know why I thought that having another watch would make me feel happy. So I kind of got buyer's remorse from it. So all I'm saying is make sure if you're selling your watch that you don't have a huge sentimental attachment to it, because if you do, I guarantee you'll regret it. Next up, we have the fact that just because a watch has a bigger price tag doesn't make it better. And I'll explain that in a second. But what I want to say before I explain that is thank you guys so much for almost 30,000 subscribers. You guys are absolutely unbelievable. This truly is the best watch community on YouTube. Our goal this year is to hit 50k subscribers. So if you could help us get there and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. As I was saying, higher prices don't necessarily mean better watches. For example, let's take Breguet for an example. An incredible watch brand with great marketing behind it. But a lot of their components and a lot of their movement components are mass produced. And it's not just them, it's a lot of other watches in the industry, but Breguet are a prime example. Sometimes you pay more money for the brand. So just be careful of that. For example, it's about £4,000 for a Breguet. And in the same price bracket, you can get a Coscan Metas certified Omega, or you could go cheaper than that and get a Tudor Coscan Metas certified. Next up, don't be quick to judge a watch based on a unique look that it might have. Let's take Panerai, because that's a prime example. That safety latch that Panerai have is very iconic to Panerai. Now, someone first getting into the industry will maybe be put off by the looks of that safety latch. But as you learn about Panerai's history, as you learn about the intricacies of a Panerai movement, as you learn about the intricacies of a Panerai watch, you come to love that piece of Panerai's history. Coming in at number 9, we have the fact that ceramic bezels aren't the be-all and end-all. And let me explain. When I first got into the industry, I knew that ceramic was more resistant, more scratch resistant than, say, stainless steel. So any watch that I got, I wanted it to have ceramic on it to protect the watch. But it really depends on what you use the watch for. Because steel, as an aesthetic, really plays wonderfully with bright dials. For an example, the Rolex Daytona, the old style Rolex Daytona, is still one of my grail watches. Or the Omega Speedmaster 57. These steel bezels play into the history of watchmaking and also give it a really unique look. So don't judge a watch just for not having a ceramic bezel, because sometimes it can be really unique getting something different than ceramic. And last but not least, this is the most important point that I want you guys to walk away with. This is the one that I want you guys to remember, not just today, but for the rest of your watch journey. Don't let other people shape your opinion about watches that you like. Everyone has different opinions, everyone has different styles, different looks, different body shapes, different skin tones. Everyone is different and therefore likes different stuff. If you like a watch that I don't, who cares? And that's what we're building here on this watch community. That's what we set out to build all those years ago when we started this watch channel, is to build a respectful community that appreciates watches in every category instead of just their biases. On the same note, guys, I'm going to tell you something a little bit more personal here. I'm going to tell you something about when I was a bit younger, when I was about 17 or 18. I was in the wrong friend group, not a very nice bunch of guys. And I remember one of them turned around one day, it was the kind of the final straw in the friend group, and they said, the fact that you do videography and photography is really embarrassing for us. You need to stop doing videography and photography because it's embarrassing. We feel embarrassed. And at that point, I cut all ties with the guys. And 6 or 7 years on, I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, like Canon, the North Face, Chisholm Hunter, because they're awesome. And I've traveled the world for my job. And that's pretty cool. But if I'd let them shape my decision, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be talking to you. So just make sure that you stay headstrong. That is all that we have time for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps more than you know. Or follow us on Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches. And I really hope this helps you on your watch journey. These are honestly things that I wish that I would have considered earlier on in my journey. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in a couple of days.